Today we have 8 books that I need to read in 2026. And these are all books that have been sitting on my shelf for a very long time. They're all tremendous books, but they're books that I've just been pushing to the background, books that I've just been pushing off. And these are books that I need to read. So please, please, please hold me to this. This is partially accountability for myself and accountability for you, and sharing things that I am really planning on reading. I saw somebody with the exact same title. If you see this video, sorry I stole your title, but I didn't watch your video. I'm not ripping off the books you need to read. If there's some carryover, then that's just weird. But yeah, the first thing that I really, really have just felt the need to read, but I haven't read, is Plato's The Republic. The more I read, the more I see we haven't gotten past Plato's ideas, the more I see the ideas repeated and repeated and repeated, and the more importance I have felt to go back to the original sources and the original documents and study them for myself, because it's one thing to get a second-hand understanding of something, but it's another to get the first-hand actual source, get to the real root of the issue, get to the real root of what is going on. And this is a book that I've just been sitting on my shelf, just collecting dust for about a year now, and I think it's finally time I pick it up. I think it's finally time that I go through it, and why not force myself to read it? I know it's a book that I'm going to enjoy in parts, but I'm going to also see it as a slog and very much struggle to get through, because it's philosophy. I don't enjoy reading philosophy anymore, and it's something that I've kind of, I don't know if I want to say grown out of, but it's just become less and less interesting the more I've read it. But, you know, Plato is interesting, and I think you need somewhat of a foundation and understanding of Plato to really get into more interesting ideas. And yeah, it's going to be the cornerstone of a lot of my thinking from now on. And that's it. We'll move into the next thing. The next thing is Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky. This is a book I've read previously, but I read it when I was 17. And when I was 17, I was certainly not as smart as I am today. I'm not saying I'm smart today, but I certainly do have a lot more wisdom than I used to have when I was a young, angsty teen. And, you know, even like some of the other books I read Frankenstein, I read The Catcher in the Rye, I read The Great Gatsby, and I didn't get it as much as I get it now. And it's one of those books that I've kept saying I'd come back to. I kept saying that I would reread, but it was only recently when I picked up a copy of it, and it was only recently when I put it in my head that the next book I'm going to read by Dostoyevsky is going to be Crime and Punishment. I enjoyed it so much the first time. I'm going to read so much more into it the second time, because I'm not going to be surprised by plot points. I'm going to be able to see exactly what Dostoyevsky was trying to say through each character, and I feel like I'm going to have such a deeper and such a finer experience reading it this second time, and I'm excited to delve into it. I'm excited to get through it. Next thing we have is To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. This is a book that I picked up, and I was going through a very stressful time at the time I tried to read this, and I could tell I wasn't going to be able to get the most out of this book when I did pick it up. And now that I'm past this stressful point in my life, now that my life has calmed down, I certainly have the attention, I certainly have the energy to read through this book. And this book is interesting because it's essentially it's like Seinfeld. Seinfeld's a show about nothing. This is a book about nothing. And I'm not saying it in the sense that there's nothing to be gained from this book, but it's essentially a story about a bunch of people going to a lighthouse, and all of the interweaving characters and their personalities, and how these all kind of tend to the human experience. And essentially it's a Freudian exploration of psychology and a Freudian exploration of life. And I'm super interested. I've heard Virginia Woolf is a tremendous author. I've never read anything by her. This is going to be a really, really good way to get started, and I'm really excited to read this. But it's one of those things, like, you know, it's like you have too many shiny objects in front of you that you can't always sift through which is the right one to pick up. And that's me with books. I have so many books that I haven't read, and I just keep getting more. But I feel like making this list and putting it out there and saying that I'm going to read this book makes it so that I'm actually going to read this book. And I know if I force myself to read this, I'm going to enjoy it. And I know if I put the right attention to it, I'm really going to love this book. But I just haven't done it yet. And here's the step in the right direction. Here's the sign that I'm going to put it in front of me. I'm going to keep this stack of books in front of me until it's finished, until I get through them. And yeah, hopefully I love this book. Maybe I don't, but I feel like I'm very much going to enjoy the book. I don't even need to enjoy the book in the traditional sense. I just want to take something away from it. I just want to be challenged. I just want to think about things in a different way. And I believe that Virginia Woolf can do that, because why else would she be such a popular author to this day if she wasn't able to do that? Next thing we have is Paradise Lost by John Milton. Milton is somebody who's inspired a lot of people that I love. So like Blake is one of my favorite authors, and Blake devoted an entire work to Milton. I can't think off the top of my head other people that Milton has inspired, but he's certainly one of the best authors of all time. And I read a little bit of Paradise Lost when I was much younger, but again, I did not understand these ideas, whether it was philosophy, whether it was theology, whether it was the allegory or the metaphors that are being invoked, and all sorts of things. And I feel like I'm going to read Milton and have a huge appreciation for it. And yeah, I'm excited to pick it up. I'm excited to go through it. I'm excited to really learn what Milton has to say and really learn, what I've been missing out on. Next thing we have is the Odyssey. The Odyssey is another thing that I've read, but I was so young, and the Odyssey is like a timeless tale. It's something that can be reread and reread and reread. And recently I've been getting into epic poetry. I feel like that's the first time anybody's ever said that. I'm such a nerd. Oh my god. But I've been reading Dante, I've been reading Blake, and I've been really enjoying things on that mythic scale. I've been really enjoying things that have that eternal weight to them, and that's certainly something that is with the Odyssey, and I can't wait to read through it again and look for deeper symbols, look for a deeper sense of humanity. And the Odyssey has always fascinated me because essentially it's the entire foundation of Greek society. Essentially, it's the thing that inspired Pythagoras. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know about Pythagoras, but it's inspired Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Pretty much all of Western civilization is based off the back of the Odyssey, and there's so much to be gained from it. And it's so interesting that it existed before writing was so... Writing and reading was so, like... Actually, literacy really wasn't a thing for a very long time for the masses, but it existed even before writing. It existed when there were bards traveling throughout society, and they were able to recite this entire long poem. I know there's a lot of fluff in this, but imagine being able to recite an entire poem word for word and then be able to give your analysis on it. And there's such a power to it, and there's such a oral tradition to it. And it's so fascinating that sort of passing down your wisdom to the next generation and memorizing things. And it's such a cool thing to think of, because we can't do that anymore. We don't have those same capabilities. And, it's almost like we've regressed as human beings as technology has somewhat progressed. And it's a very Huxleyan idea, but on to the next thing. The next thing is Don Quixote. I started reading this, and I could just tell I was going to love it, but I just didn't have the patience for it at the time. My patience is slowly coming back. But Don Quixote is essentially it's a story about a man who has read so many stories about knights that he has somewhat transcended reality, we'll say, and he believes that he's part of this epic tale, but in reality it's not the case. But it's essentially a story of people trying to convince this man to come back to reality where he doesn't want to. And it's really funny. The parts that I read about it is hilarious, because he's at this inn and he's like, "Will you ladies help me with my armor?" And they help him with his armor, and they're like laughing at him the whole time. And I could tell I'm going to enjoy it. It's really the first actual novel that was ever written, and it's one of those works that has just transcended time. But yeah, with that said, we'll get into the next thing. The next thing is Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I started reading Leaves of Grass, but again, I was going through I don't even know, it was stressful, but it was just like, I was in my own head about things. I was like, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. And I didn't have the patience to read Leaves of Grass. Leaves of Grass is essentially Walt Whitman walking through society. I don't know if he actually did this physically, but to me, he's walking through society and being able to appreciate all the little things and being able to call into question the significance of everything and anything all at once. And essentially, he's bringing this spiritual experience through his writing and through the mundaneness and finding something infinite. It's very interesting how he somewhat deifies the spirit of America and somewhat deifies the ideas of the American dream or manifest destiny, and kind of calls these into these like mythic scale, somewhat how Blake kind of mythologizes Albion and mythologizes this idea of an awakened society, and it's tremendous. What I've read of Walt Whitman so far, I've loved. It just I didn't have the patience at the time, but I will go back to it and I will enjoy it. Last thing we have is Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. This is a very interesting book because essentially in the 60s, Rachel Carson was warning about the use of pesticides, and she was actually really instrumental in, I think it's DDT. I think that's the pesticide. Yeah, it says it right on the back. But there was a pesticide that was very, very, very bad for humans, very, very bad for the environment. And through her writing, she was somewhat able to get rid of it. But it's crazy that Rachel Carson kind of wrote this book so long ago and was so able to predict things, but I feel like she would be even more horrified with the way that the food system, with the way that farming, with the way that the environment is treated, and I'm just interested to read her perspective and get to the bottom of it, because this is a book that I picked up previously. Again, it was another book that I just didn't have the patience for at the time, or I just didn't have the interest at the time. Like, I hate to say it, but I am either very good at reading a certain subject or I can't even pick it up. So like there was a time where I couldn't read fiction, and there was a time where all I could read was like nonfiction. But now it's the opposite. Now I really struggle to read nonfiction, and if you give me a fiction book and you give me an interesting plot and somewhat philosophical ideas to exemplify and learn about, then I am all ears. But like, give me anything philosophy, I can't read. But I feel like I'm slowly becoming interested in some of these subjects, and I'm slowly becoming interested in it. I feel like I can easily pick up this book right now and read it. So why not go through this book? Why not pick up something that I know has had such an impact at the time and has such relevance to today? And I'm excited to go through it, and I'm excited to read about these things. And yeah, these are 8 books that I need to read in 2026. Yeah, maybe these inspire you to pick up these books. Some of these books I've read previously and I very much urge you to pick up for yourself. But some of these other things are, books that I gave it a try and I wasn't able to read it at the time, and I put it down because I knew I wasn't going to get the full value from it. But maybe this inspires you to pick up one of these books. Maybe it inspires you to pick up a book that you've been looking at for a while that you haven't gone into. But with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for making it this far in the video. And if I stole your video idea, I'm sorry, but it was a very good idea. All I stole was your title. I feel like that's what a lot of people do, though, and it's somewhat comes with the territory. But yeah, with that said, if you want more from me, stick around on the channel. If you don't, I still love you all the same. I wish the best for you all the same, and have a good rest of your day. Peace out. See you in the next one.